So this time I got contacted by the friends over at Huion, and they sent over the Kamvas 16, not the Pro version, regular Kamvas 16, which is a display tablet and the first one of this kind on the channel. So let's unbox it. Here we have the 16-inch tablet. It's a full HD IPS screen, but we'll talk about the details a little bit later. Here's everything that comes in the box. We have the pen holder, which is typical of these Huion tablets. We also have the pen, of course. It's a bit light for my test, I think. And this is the stand for the actual tablet. That's quite nice. We also have some manuals, a cleaning cloth and a drawing glove, which I'm not really a fan, to be honest, but it does help when moving around the screen. Here's the new cables. This is a 3-in-1 cable. You get power, HDMI and a USB connection to control your computer from the tablet. This time we also get 2 USB-C cables in case you want to plug it to your laptop or something, but I'll stick to the 3-in-1. Here's a power brick. It's USB-A, and this you connect to the 3-in-1 tablet, the 3-in-1 cable, sorry. So let's look at the tablet. Here, let me open it. Okay, it's quite nice. So you got the USB-C ports, which are both labeled for the cable that you decide to use depending on your setup, wherever you find most convenient. We got many quick keys on the side. Something I didn't like much is the fact that you also have 2 buttons for the zoom rather than a touchpad or a dial, and the power button on top. Let's take a look at this stand. It's made of metal and plastic, and I quite like it. We have 2 options for the tilt, which is nice, obviously, to always have options, and you have different angles, so you can choose whatever is more comfortable for you. The pen holder also serves as a container for extra nibs. Oh, these are all loose, but it comes with quite a few nibs. Let's see. The pen has 2 buttons, which is great, and it doesn't need batteries, and it feels quite good to hold. The buttons are clicky. It may be a bit on the lighter side, but that's also a personal preference. Here we got the glove, which again I don't use. Some manuals or documentation, I think. Yeah. And we have a cleaning cloth, and it's all Huion branded, which is great to have. Okay, so let's start with the video. Here I am sketching some thumbnails in Photoshop, which is something that many of you have requested to see in these videos. And the thing is that I don't always thumbnail, since I am sometimes clear on an idea that I want to create. So it's enough of an idea to go straight to 3D and then do some iterations from there. But in this case, I had to do some exploratory sketches just to figure out the composition and the architecture of the actual environment. And it's also a good opportunity to showcase the tablet, so that's why I am showing this part. So let's talk about the tablet, since this part of the process it's very straightforward. And again, we got a 16-inch full HD laminated display, which to be honest is quite bright. It's also a 120% RGB, which means it has good enough colors. Compared to the LG monitor that I use on a daily basis, it's not as good color-wise in my opinion, but that may be because that's just what I'm used to using every day. The pen, again, is battery-free, which is great. It has a 60-degree tilt support, and it has over 8,000 levels of pressure sensitivity, which is crazy to think about. Nowadays it seems to be the standard, but back in the day when I started, it was like around 2K or something like that for a good tablet. You can connect the tablet to your Windows PC, to your Mac, and even to some Android devices that support USB-C 3.1 standard. For this, you will need to use a USB-C to USB-C cable that comes in the box. So just be conscious that in doing so, you will need to supply power to the tablet, also using the brick and cable that comes with the tablet, so you will end up with 2 cables connected to the tablet, which I feel is more closer to my taste. So here I've already started to model the environment. As you've seen, I just did a few sketches just to figure out the layout of the environment, find a composition, which I then added some grayscale values just to have better perception of what's in front of what, like basic values and atmospheric perspective. Whatever is closer to you is just darker, and as it goes backwards, it starts to get lighter. So yeah, here I am in Blender already, and you can see me use like a combination of the pen and the mouse. In this early stage, whenever I am modeling, I prefer to use the mouse, and whenever I will do some sculpting, then I will go back to using the pen on the tablet. But this first part, it's mostly the keyboard and the mouse. So another thing about this tablet is the quick keys on the side are customizable, and you get 10 of them. Again, the thing that I didn't like is that the zoom control, it's also a couple of keys rather than a dial or a knob, or even like a touch slider as they used to have in the previous version of this tablet. So yeah, that's again probably personal preference, but I did like more the touch sensitive slider for some control. I think it's more natural. Regarding the orientation of the tablet and the use of the quick keys, you can use it in any way that you prefer. That's totally customizable, so if you're either left-handed or right-handed, you'll be able to use the keys without any issue. One thing that has improved a lot for sure, it's the drivers, the software to control the tablet. The latest version is very good. It offers different parameters that you can change to your liking. You can save and export them, and it's much better than it used to. One thing that it has is that you still have to only have the Huion drivers for it to properly work. If you have the Wacom drivers or an XP Pen or timelapse drivers installed on your PC, the Huion drivers won't work as well. You'll get some issues, so that's a bummer, since I use different tablets every now and then, and for me to use this I had to uninstall the drivers for the other tablets. And apparently Huion is the only one that has this issue, because again I use a couple of tablets in everyday life, and I haven't had any issues with having 2 or even more drivers installed on the computer at the same time. Yeah, so overall I think it's a great product, and for the price I do recommend taking a look at it on their website. You will find a link in the description if you're interested and are looking to buy yourself a display tablet rather than just like a regular tablet. If you want to do the upgrade, I think it's worth it. Probably not for much of the box modeling work that probably some of you do, but if you are also into drawing or painting or even sculpting, then yeah, it's a great addition to your tools. Yeah, so thanks to Huion for sending over the tablet, and let's get back to the creation of this video. So here I have already created some layout using basically some cylinders, well, quite a few cylinders, and using the same cylinders to boolean into other cylinders. If you haven't realized by now, I have created this Chamber of Secrets from the Harry Potter universe, and I don't know, I think I have been wanting to do this environment for quite a while. I think it's very iconic, and it seemed like the perfect opportunity, since I am going to sculpt the main head in this environment, which is the Slytherin statue that you can see in the background. And I am also using the tablet and the sculpting functions in Blender to sculpt these snake statues that are repeated all along the chamber or this hall. I'm not sure what to call it. But yeah, at this point I'm still in the blocking stage. I am setting up some area lights and some volume geo, just to get closer to what I wanna represent from the thumbnail that I created at the beginning. So here's the part where I will start sculpting. I use a sphere to start creating the shape of the head. I set out some basic proportions. I'm not that great sculpting a human head yet. I can draw it and I can paint it quite good enough. But when it comes to sculpting, the eyes to me is the most difficult part, to be honest. But here I am using like the voxel remesh to add some more geometry so I can sculpt better. And yeah, you can see that using the display tablet comes really handy in this situation, because you are basically sculpting almost on the surface, and since this is like a laminated display, there's almost no separation between the tip of the pen to whatever the cursor is in the screen. So yeah, it's great. This is what I was talking about a little bit earlier. I'm not that great at sculpting the eyes into a head yet, but something I've seen other people do is just like try to sculpt the eyes closed, and then they will carve into them and add the sphere. I didn't want to complicate myself for this one, so I just left them closed, and I think it's indeed a nice technique. It works quite well. So here I got rid of all the geometry that I didn't need, because I will be duplicating this head quite a few times, and then I will be merging it to the center pillar. So the less geometry that I have, the better, because the scene probably will start getting much heavier, and I still have to sculpt the snakes. So yeah, here I will start to add the hair using the clay brush, and try to use the mirror option as much as I could, but it wasn't working quite well since I didn't duplicate the heads on the sides on a symmetry reference point to say something, meaning that some parts weren't aligning with the other when I tried to mirror them, so I had to sculpt those on the side manually. I am also adding some detail to the pillar. I've already combined it, and yeah, I am trying to get as much detail with the least geometry that I can, just to keep the scene light. Because again, I was also missing the sculpt of the snakes. Here I tried to separate the pillar from the heads, and just trying to get some more resolution into them, but that wasn't working. So I just like remeshed the whole thing and added the detail where it was needed, and then just tried not to touch the other areas that won't be looking. In the end, it's probably enough geometry for Blender to handle it without crashing the computer. And also for the snakes, I knew I would be instancing them, so I decided to go for it. In case it didn't work, then probably I would come back to this and try to optimize the geometry a little bit more to prevent my computer from exploding, which honestly is getting a little bit old by now. I see in the comments quite often people asking about the specs of my computer, and I always try to respond to those comments, but in case you haven't watched the other videos, which you should, by the way, my computer is quite old by modern standards. I got an i7 Intel processor. It's from an 8th generation. I have an RTX 2070 Super from Nvidia, which honestly is probably not that great by now. I think you can get like a 4060, which is much cheaper, and it will give you a better performance both in gaming and in 3D, to be honest. And if you go for like a 4070 or something like that, which would be the equivalent, it's even better. It has even more VRAM. One thing that I have is 64 gigs of RAM. I think it's like a DDR4 or something like that. So it's quite fast, and to be honest, I probably don't need that much RAM. Probably somewhere around 48 would be enough. I have an M2 SSD drive for the operating system, so it goes quite smooth and it's fast to boot up and everything. And yeah, that's probably the main thing. I also have many external hard drives to store all of my 3D files and my paintings and work related stuff. But yeah, just get like a good enough graphics card for Blender and you'll be fine. So here I've already started sculpting the snakes. I of course have some reference up in my monitor and on top, just so I know what I'm doing. And I know I could use like a special alpha brush or something to sculpt the scales, but I usually don't like to overcomplicate myself mapping those, since Blender is quite a bit weird when using those. So I just like use the brushes that come default for the sculpt mode in Blender. And since everything would be dark and foggy, I didn't mind, to be honest. Remember, this is not like an actual 3D asset that we would be used in production. This is just like a concept art thing, so we don't need that much detail. We can paint it after. So I've done some basic texturing using texture. I think it's from Polyhaven or 3dtextures.com, something like that. And I applied the same texture to the pillar and to the statues, and then I decided I would use just the same texture for everything else, like for the path, the stairs and the tunnels. I ended up using the same texture because again I didn't want to complicate myself. This was already quite a long video, to be honest. In real time this is about 4 to 5 hours maybe, and this is like a 30-minute video, but honestly it's also a bit longer because I had to do the review for the tablet. Yeah, so here I was trying something very interesting which I haven't tried before. I just created a new plane and place it on top of the box for the pad. And what I'm going to do is use a noise texture and plug that noise texture into an alpha on the shader for that plane. So I just have the reflection of the puddles, and then add some transparency using the alpha texture just to kind of mask it and see if that worked, because I didn't want to create a new material just for that path, because I was using the same material for everything. Then the puddles will show on everything. I didn't want that to happen to everything. I think the result was quite convincing enough. In the final image you probably won't even see it because I darken it a little bit, but probably going forward it's worth it to just create a new material and do this same idea, but within the same shader, the same material, rather than trying to do this plain masking trick. Also used some sculpting for that box, and duplicated that box using the array modifier just to get some more interesting detail in the edges of the pad. Here now I'm selecting that boolean holes on the top and extending those upwards, so I don't have just like an empty dark background in there, because since I am putting the lights in, those areas will catch some light. So here I am instancing the whole tunnel and just rotating it 90 degrees, so I get the other intersection of the environment. For this one I also created a special geometry dedicated to creating the god rays, the volume that is above the serpent statues, because just using the regular box and adding some fog wouldn't cut it. I was not getting the required volume on those areas, so I had to create a dedicated geometry for that. And then again, I will also be enhancing those areas in Photoshop, so just to get an idea, get a good base, and do as much as I can in 3D without spending too much time. Here I am adding 2 characters. Those are from, I think the website is called 3D People or something like that, 3dpeople.com or Biz People. I think that's also another website that I use to get these human models, and I have already saved them to the asset browser just so they are quick to drag and drop. And one thing I didn't make from the beginning on this one is to work on a real world scale. So then I spent like probably, I don't know, like 5 to 10 minutes just scaling everything to the proper scale in regards to the environment compared to the human models. And again, these models are just like placeholders, because I will be overpainting them in Photoshop too, just so I get some more thematic idea. Like, one good thing that you should always do is to put a character in your scenes, because that way the viewer can relate to the character, and they can know what the scale of the whole environment is. Like, we know how big are humans, so everything else that is in the image, when you compare it to the human or the figures in the scene, then you get an idea of how big things are. For example, right there, the pillar and the sculpt of the head is huge compared to the human back there. And it also helps to sell the perspective of the environment. Like, for example, if you see a human being close to camera, and then you see that little guy on the back, or it doesn't even have to be a guy. As long as it resembles a human figure, your brain will be able to connect the dots and just sell the idea that if that's smaller, then it's probably in perspective. It's way on the back, and it helps sell the scale of the environment too. And this also works with like birds or things that are real and we can relate to, things that we know what's the size of the thing. Usually the most effective is the human figure. Here I am in Photoshop, and the first thing is to import all the passes. And after I am tweaking the values, which is something that you've seen me do many times before in the latest videos. It's just creating a new layer, set it to overlay, and then paint with black where you want darker shadows or more contrast, and then painting with white where you want lighter values, or where you have something that you want to pop up. Here I will be alternating between the camera view of the tablet and the actual screen recording, just so you know how the tablet is really useful when painting or drawing or sculpting, not as much as when box modeling, which you could see me at the beginning use mostly the mouse. But yeah, here I'm enhancing all those light areas using some brush that is shaped like a cloud. I am adding some textures and then try to mask them just to create some moss. I didn't like it in the end, so I just got rid of it here in a few seconds right there, and decided just to start tweaking the color, make it cinematic, trying to be a little bit closer to the description of the book, which I remember reading. It said it had like a greenish hue somewhere, like being evil or whatever. Here I am using again the cutout filter or the dry brush filter to reduce a bit the details from the CG and try to blend everything together whenever I start painting over it. Using the clown pass or the ID pass comes handy to make selections and just tweak specific areas. The way you get those out of Blender is just basically render the scene using Workbench engine rather than using Cycles or using Eevee. There's a third render engine option, which is Workspace, and then you change the display of the Workspace render to render random colors without an outline, without the what's it called, the camera blur, and without the environment. So get an anti-aliased version of that, and then you can just import that into Blender, tweak the colors a little bit using the curves or the levels, just so you can better see the selection, and you will get that color selection for every object that is separate, so you can have a selection for any object that you need, which comes really handy for this kind of things, to adding fog or to add some rim lighting, or if you want to boost the contrast or the lighting of some areas. It's much quicker to have a selection already set rather than selecting it by yourself. And that's also something that I don't always use. Sometimes it's much easier just to make a quick selection by yourself using the lasso, or even painting a mask by hand. But in this case, I had the ID pass, so I decided to use that. And whether I will use the ID pass or not, I always render it. I always render one, because you never know when you're gonna need it, and it's better just to have it already in your Photoshop file. So yeah, here I'm almost done. I've overpainted my main character, which is just like a wizard. You can say it's hairy or not. I use the mist pass to create some bloom in there, just trying to get a bit more of a realistic natural lighting in there. Then I decided to add some fog that is close to the ground, and then erased it where I didn't need it. Added some lens flares effects near to the wand, and some noise, and that's very much it. So yeah, hope you liked it. Visit the link in the description if you want to get a tablet. Please subscribe, hit the notifications, and yeah, comment what was your favorite part. See you on the next one. There's a new video coming every Wednesday, so bye.